All the presentations in these last few days have been very exciting, but very often, and not necessarily with these people, there's someone behind the scenes that's sort of connecting up people, making things happen, introducing journalists to the people, helping the designers create the stories, what Cecilia was talking about this morning, the narrative, the telling of the story. And very often it's very, very difficult to get a designer to tell their story and how did the product come about. I personally have been involved in the design community, maybe just a little less than George Bellarian. And George and I, our careers have spanned a similar period. I started out as a journalist, and I want to tell you that I discovered George Bellarian. I was the design editor of a trade newspaper put out by Fairchild called Home Furnishings Daily, which is now called HFN, Home Furnishings News. And a daily, that's hard work. My friend Lou Gropp, who became the editor-in-chief of House and Garden, and I were just running around New York all the time looking for stories, because journalists really have to stay on top of what's happening and be the first ones to get it. So Lou and I went to a little store on 60th Street called Scarabaeus, and we met George, and the rest is history. But the reality is that George never needed a PR person. And I never did PR for George. He's just magnificent all by himself. But communicating design is what's happening behind the scenes. So much of what you've seen these last 2 days is the actual product, how the designers work and think, what the manufacturers do. But there is so much that's happening with museums, journalists. It's a story unto itself, and every successful PR campaign has a high drama. So I started out in journalism. I went to corporate communications with Formica Corporation, and now I own SGLA, my own PR firm. Journalism is one of the most important parts of my life, and I really believe that as a journalist, it set the way that I think, and I believe that my firm is successful in the projects that I've done because I approach everything as a journalist. I would never encourage my clients to dress up like clowns or do anything ridiculous. I really feel that people have very serious stories to tell. And the narrative is very key. Stories are passed down from generation to generation, and the narrative is primary to a good public relations campaign. And like a journalist, a PR person must stay really on top of what's happening in design. And also journalists have tremendous access. And this is something that's really been very, very helpful. And the access that's the behind the scenes that I was mentioning before. For example, I was working with a developer who had inherited a parcel of land in northern Florida. And while we were talking, he was telling me that he didn't know what to do with it. And I said, well, I know 2 really good architects that I think might be super helpful to you. And this is as a journalist. And their names were Liz Platter-Zyberk and Andres Dwani, and his name was Robert Davis. And Seaside, I think, has become, at least to Americans, Seaside has become iconic and one of the most important developments of its time. And that's the kind of behind-the-scenes activities that take place that I don't have a lot of slides because I didn't think it was necessary to show you pictures of some of these projects. The main thing that I wanted to talk about was how it happens and connections that can be made. For example, I went to Philadelphia to photograph Robert Venturi's house. And when I was walking through the house, I saw this enormous room with, it must have had, I don't know, over 100 chairs stacked on top of each other. And he said to me, I love chairs. So he said, the thing I want to do most in life is design a chair. And as a journalist, I had access. I called up the owners of Knoll, and I made it happen. And one of the chairs is upstairs. You can see it now. It's not in the current European show. I went upstairs a little while ago to another one of Craig's fabulous little exhibitions called Design Since 1945. And the Robert Venturi chair is there. And I'm also sorry I never bought one. The kind of access that the press has to designers, I was very friendly with Frank Gehry. And being a friend, he did this house that some of you might be familiar with in Santa Monica. And because we were friends, and I was a journalist, I was at House Beautiful, he said, you can publish it first. And really, everybody wanted to publish it. And I told my boss, the editor-in-chief of House Beautiful, that I had the honor of being given this great house to photograph and publish. And she thought I was kidding. She couldn't believe the house. She didn't understand it. And it was at that point I decided to move on. And, I went to Formica Corporation. And my first project there, as Nasir mentioned in the introduction, was an exhibition of famous architects and designers demonstrating a product that Formica was making at the time called Color Core. And we had Shira Koramata, Todd Williams and Billy Chen, many architects and designers experimenting and creating conceptual objects. And the show actually traveled for 2 years. And when it was finished, I wrote a letter to every important museum that had a design collection and asked them if they wanted a piece, and they were all taken. And that was a great, so they all exist, and they're all still around. Also, oh, I forgot to show a slide, sorry. Is that the right way, or this way? Okay. So that's the Frank Gehry fish, and there were several of them. I think there was an addition. Well, the one that was in the exhibition went to the Museum of Contemporary Art in Los Angeles. This is one that was, I believe, at the Walker Art Center. But while I was at Formica, I also had the idea that this is an iconic American company, and its history should be told. And so I set about building an archive for the company. I sent out millions of letters and collected lots of old material and commissioned some of the best writers about design to write essays in the book about all the aspects of Formica. And the book is just sold out of its second printing, which surprises me. I didn't think that many people were interested. But someone said to me that designers love their history, and this is my favorite line, though, is the first sentence of the book is, "The history of Formica is not what you think." And apparently a lot of people are interested to know what it is. Then Formica got sold, and I decided that I was tired of working for other people and I would like to work for myself. So I opened a public relations agency because I really feel I know so many people in design and journalism, and it would be great fun, and it has turned out to be wonderful, wonderful fun to help people tell their stories. And I feel that there's a 50-50 rule, that 50% of marketing a product is the product itself. It's the great design, it's the great idea, the great designer. But the other 50% is the communications package. And I really do believe that a lot of people see it as wonderful advertising. Well, to me, an advertisement can be exquisite and beautiful, but people turn pages very quickly, and it's really just a soundbite. A lot of people are in love with beautiful graphics or inventive graphics, but I think that so much of what happens with a product is the public relations. And I think that a lot of people don't really understand how powerful public relations is in helping a story get a product into a place that it deserves to be, or a designer or an architect to become well known. And there's a lot of strategizing and intellectual searching that goes into a public relations campaign. It's a much slower, more detailed project than I think a lot of people would imagine. I'll just show you a few examples. We were very lucky to be hired by James Dyson when he entered the United States. I'm just going to show you 3 small examples because there are millions and millions of examples from our office. But when we started working with James, as the other 2 examples that I'll show you, it was completely unknown in the United States. And one of the things we did with James is to take him out on the road. After all, nobody in the United States had a clue what a Dyson was or who James Dyson was. And this is only 5 years ago. And he never had to wear a bunny suit. He's a very, very serious guy. And he has a lot of integrity about what he does. And we really wanted him to tell his story. And we traveled all over the United States to museums, design schools. And every city that we went to, we would not only would he speak, but we would create small dinners and lunches with the top design people, top journalists in those cities. And we continue to do those kinds of things for a lot of our clients. And that's another way that people get to be known. Let's see. Well, for example, I'm very friendly with Simon Doonan, who does Barney's windows, and I called Simon, and this is an example of how things happen behind the scenes. And Simon turned out to be from the same town in England that James was from, and had admired him. Excuse me just a minute. And so he was thrilled to have his models vacuum up the floors of Barney's windows. And then we took some of James's philosophy to Starbucks, and they loved the idea and put it on a Starbucks cup. And I think that you might have seen some of James's advertising, which is quite wonderful because he tells the story of how he creates the product. We started working with Design Miami in 2005, which was the first year that it existed. And it's hard to believe that in 2005, nobody knew what Design Miami was. Well, they couldn't because it wasn't. We were in from the very, very beginning in building the brand of a design fair, which was very exciting. There's James in Fast Company. Design Miami. There's Ambra Mehta from Design Miami, also in Fast Company. It looks like our favorite magazine. But it is a good magazine, and I think the stories have a lot of credibility. And this is more on Design Miami. This is Tom Kundig, who is an architect from Seattle. And Tom is a really wonderful architect. And there are a lot of wonderful architects out there. But Tom totally credits our agency with helping him build his career. Since we've been working with him about 5 years, he's won a National Design Award in Architecture. He just won the AIA Firm Award. And he's published everywhere. I'll just show you a little bit. These are some of Tom's houses. This was in the Wall Street Journal recently. That's Tom. There he is in Men's Vogue. And I think that's it. I guess the thing that I wanted to bring to this party, and it is like a party because I'm having a wonderful time, is that so much happens in the world of design behind the scenes. And all the wonderful things that you've seen today sometimes have a lot of helping hands behind them. Thank you.